Hello and welcome to Scorched Earth Toys at anymoon.com's review of Yamato's Variable Fighter Collection Series 1 and Series 2. VFC Volume 1 was released in June 2008 for 4,500 yen for a box of 10, so you got 3 sets of standard figures and 1 chase figure. In the box you were guaranteed to have a fighter, Gearwalk, Batroid set of the VA3M, the VF1J Hikaru, the YF19, and a single figure of the low-vis VF1J. VFC Volume 2 followed in January 2009, costing nearly 7,000 yen for a box of all 12. You got a Vf9 Cutlass, a Vf1A Event Coloring, a YF21, and a Vf1S Foker. Also, you got Fighter, Gearwalk, and Batroid again. The prices for these gashapon style toys with no frills was pretty steep. Didn't go over particularly well. This was supposed to be indicative of the higher quality product you were getting. These toys are made out of ABS, so the wings aren't curving down like they would be with a PVC figure. The paintwork and weathering was supposed to be better, and it is pretty good. Some of the toys, they look like they got a little heavy on the wash, but could have been worse. Looks like weathering. Some people probably really digged it. These toys are approximately 1/200 scale. I say approximately because some of them are more like 1/250, while others come in at 1/175. You can see in these pictures, I've got the measurements of each one and what their actual scales would be. The biggest problem is the YF21, which essentially comes in right at 1/200 scale, while the YF19 is more like 1/250, so they don't pair well for displays. Alright, let's take a closer look at some of these toys individually. Series 1 includes the VA3M. The construction of the Batroid mode allows for a little bit of articulation. You've got a swivel point at the head, you've got rotation points at the arms, that's just because they're pegs that go into a hole. You also have a waist swivel point. If you get too crazy with the arms and where you position them, you throw off the weight of that toy and it won't stand on its little stand anymore, so that's something to consider. That's about it for that guy. And there you go. Fighter mode looks good. Check out Scorched Earth Toys at anymoon.com. I have line art comparisons of all of these toys. This toy connects via a little peg hole to the stand. You would think that Yamato would have done that with all of the toys, but they didn't. They got a little more complicated to try to keep the fighter mode unimpaired with holes, which I guess a pro, but also possibly a con if it involved the expense. But as you can see, fighter mode looks good. Gearwalk mode, there's really nothing to it. Again, here's an example of a special adapter that connects to the back of the toy rather than putting a slot in the front. There's really no articulation to speak of Gearwalk mode for this toy. Okay, here we have Samu's YF19. Again, Batroid mode has some limited articulation. You can rotate the arm and you can rotate the leg, but obviously if you rotate the leg, you're not going to be able to stand the toy very well. Head doesn't rotate, nothing else really does. Gearwalk mode has a little bit of arm articulation as well, but I thought it looked pretty terrible with the way the legs are, so not very fond. I'm also just generally not fond of a YF19 Gearwalk mode. It looks like some funky afterthought. The YF19 fighter mode is a good example of how Yamato tried to not screw up the look of fighter mode with a stand connector. So you can see you got the gun in there, everything looks good, no obvious way it attaches to the stand, and then you can slide the stand into place like so. Okay, let's move on. Both Series 1 and Series 2 come with some VF1 toys. The VF1 figures feature articulated lasers on the head, a rotating head, rotating hands, and rotating arms at the shoulder, as well as rotating hips. So again, that's all just because those are the things that you peg into the toy, and that's why those points of articulation exist. Detail is decent enough. And that's really all there is to Batroid mode. Not a whole lot more to add there. The special paint scheme, blue with white trim, doesn't look bad. The VF1A head does not have an articulated laser. VF1J, again, an odd choice of chase figures. Not particularly attractive or exciting. Not sure many people were hunting those down. Moving along, we have Gearwalk mode. Now these toys do feature shoulders that are articulated, and again the fists as well. On the display stand they connect via a peg in the bottom. You can angle them forward and back and have a little bit of fun with them. But that's really all there is to it. The wings do sweep. Looks like getting them all the way closed might be impossible, but you could certainly bring them back or all the way out. And that's about it. Similarly, fighter mode does allow you to sweep the wings. But again, that's about it. There's nothing really to say there. The attachment is to the gun. You can remove. It's a very snug fit. You can remove it and you can't see how it attached at all. Nice little attention to detail on Yamato's part. Now one build issue I didn't point out, but I will now. My Gearwalk mode Hikaru, the canopy doesn't sit well. And what it looks like is there's some plastic that was left over in the manufacturing process. So just in general, for a few of these toys, you might have to do a little bit of cleanup work, and you might actually want to glue things into place just to avoid the possibility of losing some very small parts. Losing small parts is the perfect segue to discussion of the Vf9 Cutlass, which comes with Series 2. The Batroid figure is a huge pain in the butt. It has an arm peg, which does not fit the slot on the arm. The peg, I don't know how easy it'll be for you to tell, is much bigger than the slot. So if you try to connect them, the peg will just force the arm right off. Now you might be able to get just a little bit in. I've got some pictures where I was successful, usually by angling the arm quite a bit, but it's just a debacle. And to make matters worse, you are supposed to attach tiny little guns to the tip of this arm. So if you did that first, you would be struggling to put on this arm on the peg, and you'd be pressing up against those little guns, and you'd knock them out, which would be a big pain in the butt. But also, the pegs on the guns are too big for the hole in the arm. So now you've got to try to force these things together. So you'd probably want to do some cleanup and shave some parts, and then glue everything together. Is how you would do your VF9 Batroid mode. Otherwise, once you've got that done, you'd have some arm articulation, nothing with the legs. It looks like the head could be articulated, but basically just a big pain in the butt and a major letdown. Gearwalk mode is similarly a letdown. Maybe this was more unique to me and just bad gluing. One cool feature of Gearwalk mode is you can move the canopy or the front of the plane around. It looks like it can kind of angle, kind of like a weird bird. But if I try to angle this on the display stand, what usually happens is the arms fall down. So they're their own part, they peg in, but not very well. So again, this would be a touch of glue to resolve that issue. And again, a special connector just for that toy. The highlight of the VF9 Cutlass is the fighter mode toy, which doesn't necessarily do anything, but it looks good. And it's a rare, obscure Valkyrie, so that's fun. Finally, we have Series 2's YF21. From a line art standpoint, the YF21 isn't the best of the figures. Check out anymoon.com, I'll show you how it stacks up. But it's still decent enough looking. Batroid mode, you get an articulated shoulder, and the fists rotate, as well as these bay doors. The legs don't really move. As I mentioned earlier, things got a little screwy with scale. The YF19 was originally built too small, and then they made the YF21 the correct size, so now it looks like the YF21 just absolutely towers over the YF19. Fortunately, from a fighter mode standpoint, the discrepancy is not as huge, so it works out a little bit better, but still not great. The gear walk mode is an improvement over the YF19's, if for no other reason than the legs are splayed apart a little bit better. Fighter mode looks good. I don't really have any reason to complain about it. That's good. It's all one solid piece. Gearwalk also solid. Batroid pretty solid except for these bay doors, which can be a little bit annoying. In conclusion, Yamato deserves some credit. They tried some different sales techniques. They got rid of the chase figure for Series 2. And even in Series 1, they made it so if you bought a complete box, you got everything you could want, with exception of the chase figures. These are moves that probably really were favorable to people that don't normally collect gashapon toys. But for hardcore gashapon collectors, it probably took the fun out of collecting these. So that was definitely a blade that cut both ways. The choice of chase was nonsensical. Who cares about non-canon paint schemes when you have so many? There's like 20 different canon paint schemes to choose from. Why didn't we just get a VF1J Max and a VF1J Miria in Series 2? It just doesn't really make sense. And obviously I just use Max and Miria as an example, but a lot of other toys could have worked, or a lot of other paint schemes could have worked. So low vis and a paint scheme no one's ever even seen before. Kind of crazy. Ultimately, while they are higher quality, I think Bandai took a couple pointers from the fact that Yamato's fighter modes of these toys sold better than everything else. So they subsequently released the Bandai Fighter Collection 1/250 scale toys. Those sold a lot better, and as such they're a more complete universe, although not quite as hardcore obscure as some of these Yamato offerings. But I would say they are definitely the better choice at this point. Check out anymoon.com for a gratuitously large review of these toys. Thanks for viewing.